You guys gonna see me with the same clothes on from earlier because, um, yeah, I basically after I did what I need to do earlier this morning, like I basically stayed in today. But y'all, so the mission impossible, the mission has always been the same by satanic forces, um, which would be to steal your mind so that they can operate your mind for you. They can puppet you, right? Control you, right? When we think about MK Ultra, when we think about the concept of mind control, implanting things in your mind, okay? Implanting things in the subconscious. When you think about babes, children who are still in a very malleable state, and even like how our flesh and our skull, our skeleton, for example, how the top of your head is like one of the slowest to really harden and solidify, right? And how you just have to be careful with that portion of your head. And when you think about our chakras and you think about our soul star, right? Because generally we think about your root chakra, um, then your sacral, your solar, your heart, your throat, your third eye, your crown, right? Man, this is gonna be deep. Like, I don't even have that much battery, but it's gonna be deep, and I want this to be straight to the point and a brief, deep message. Um, so there's so many attacks on our mind, and sometimes to try and steal somebody's mind or try to infiltrate it, sometimes it can operate through self-hate. So even though if you're not strong enough in your willpower and in your spirit and how you see yourself and love yourself, yeah, you can become or associate your self-esteem and your confidence a lot on superficial things, or like how we have some people who don't love their own hair and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with wearing weave, okay, and keeping yourself up and stuff. It becomes like a problem when it skews how you perceive yourself. That's the only time it's a problem. But there's an illusion around that. There's nothing wrong with you getting the weave or whatever. Again, it's more so about your perception, your willpower, making sure that you're not susceptible to things being planted or implanted in your subconscious when it comes to how you perceive yourself and how you feel about yourself. So it's more so that, and a series of other ways, okay, to infiltrate your mind or quote unquote steal your mind out of your possession so that somebody else is operating the vehicle. So boom, steal your mind and then kill your will. When we talk about our willpower, our will to live, right? Our will to fight, our will to keep going, being strong willed, my will to thy will, or aligning your will with God's will, your solar plexus, right? And the thing about the willpower being associated with your solar plexus, your inner sun, okay, that ability to revitalize and regenerate is associated with your self-esteem, your confidence, and your creativity, right? So steal your mind, kill your will, right? Your will. So this can even be like a will that's still active, but who's in control of the will if your mind has been stolen? You get what I'm saying? So it's that energy of possession, like wanting to possess ownership over your vessel, your vehicle, your home. And this is why God gives us these different examples of our body or how to perceive our body to give us a deeper understanding to what's actually going on around us and what we're up against, and why it's almost like God speaking in parables by associating our body as a vehicle that you drive to a destination, a vehicle that can also require maintenance, a vehicle that can get dirty, a vehicle that can break down, that people can break into, that people can try and steal, right? A home, same thing, a home that can be infiltrated with unwanted guests, a home that can be broken into, a home that can be destroyed from the inside out or outwardly, a house that can be burned down, right? And the scripture that God was giving me for this message is the scripture when He said, "I go to prepare a place for you." And basically, He's saying, at my Father's house, there are many mansions, and where I am, there you may be also. So again, if God associates our body with being a temple, right, being a vehicle, being a vessel, being something that houses what's inside, housing your spirit, when God basically says, "I go to prepare a place for you in my Father's house," this is like God's house, God's ownership, the world, okay, the universe, okay, the multiverse, the everything, everything that we exist in, right? This is God's house, technically. Um, this is God's land, right? And so I go to prepare a place for you in my Father's house where there are many mansions, as in there are many beings, many people, many souls, many vehicles, quote unquote, many supposed temples, right? We're supposed to be temples, but within being that temple and thinking about ascension and upgrading, right? Your temple is supposed to progress to that mansion. Like, that's referring to that scripture. So a lot of times we only associate that with the physical mansions outside of us, like an actual building. But what goes over our head when you heal yourself, when you purify your body, your mind, when you detox, okay, when you do that shadow work, when you get real with yourself and you set boundaries and you respect yourself and you continue to strive, but always include God in all things, right? Shh, hush. You always include God in all things. So what that's saying to us is, you know how the ultimate youth serum is healing, is detoxing. You know how the whole concept and idea of how we can pollute ourselves with like pollutants, literal pollutants in the air, toxins in the food, um, foods that cause disease and lead to infections and generate all this mucus in our bodies. Okay, um, almost like your waste system getting backed up, like your lymphatic, right? Your waste system getting backed up, and it's not being properly released in its proper place. And so think about people who are hoarders, right? And how they just collect all that stuff. Okay, they collect all that stuff, and what ends up happening is that they end up creating an environment that's restricted, that's limited, that's sickly, that begins to house other critters and just filth, right? And again, you know how we often say cleanliness is next to godliness. So again, this is why it's crucial for us to purify not just our bodies but our minds, finding some type of emotional balance and regulation, like being okay with crying when your body wants to cry, okay? And this is why it's important for us to understand the wisdom of nature as well, because we are reflections of that. It's made all by God. This is God's house. Nature is God's house, and us moving about as people, we're those buildings, right? We're in, and that's the thing. Think about the examples that we have. I'm gonna have to plug my phone up because this is gonna be a deep message. Think about what we have access to see physically outside of us when it comes to the example of houses. If God refers to us as a temple, or our bodies, our flesh is housing our spirit. Think about how some houses become abandoned houses, some houses become crack houses, some houses end up being burned down. They become slut houses, like, but the point is, there are some places that are more nice. There's some buildings that are hospitals, some buildings that are certain facilities that we need, right? When you think about those of us and whatever our unique gifts and skill sets or things that we pursue, things that we feel inspired to do, like for work, our career and stuff like that, it's like that's equivalent to being in a hospital, for example, or being some type of clinic, for example, or being a therapeutic center. You know what I'm saying? This is literally what it is. So when you purify yourself, when you heal, when you go through the renovations, like even when we think about the scriptures that talks about God creating me a clean heart, renew a right spirit within me. When God says guard your heart, your mind, your body, your soul, guard your hearing, guard your seeing, guard your speaking, right? It's almost like the systems of that house or the systems of that vehicle, right? Like your air conditioning, your heat, your plumbing, your flooring, your ceiling, the gutters, you know what I'm saying? But different things, different rooms that need upkeep, or you may need a replacement, like maybe your stove go out, maybe the washer goes out, like, but things that are crucial, to keep the house functioning and flowing, right? And creating like conditions where you can thrive. So again, those of us who do the work that is required, right? We go on these healing journeys and we begin to look more youthful, um, opposed to people who age themselves quickly by what they allow themselves to be polluted by and how long they stay open to that pollution, right? That's literally what it is. So when Yeshua says, I go to prepare a place for you in my Father's house where there are many mansions, and where I am, there you may be also. So again, the Spirit of God, the anointing, um, being like Jesus, the Christ consciousness being within you, right? That is what that is what creates the repair, the regeneration, the replenishment, the renovation. You know what I'm saying? That is what gets you molded and transformed, right, into something even greater, right? It's like leveling up. You know how some people may start in you can start anywhere. Some people may start in being well off, okay, in regards to how they grow up. Some people may start off in like really toxic neighborhoods or toxic family environments, toxic homes, lack of guidance, okay, lack of safety and security, or it's compromised somehow, and then they may level up to a better neighborhood or to an apartment, and then maybe a regular apartment, but it's some type of shelter. But you take care of it, you cultivate it, right? And then eventually you're able to get a luxury apartment. Then maybe you can get a condo, and then maybe you can get like you can rent. You can rent a house, and then maybe you can go from renting a house to purchasing land, getting a house built. You know what I'm saying? That's literally when we think about having awakenings. That's literally what it is. That's what's happening. So again, when God says where there are many mansions and where Christ is, there we may be also, right? So when you think about receiving your abundance and your covenant with God and all the things that we aspire to have that makes us feel completely secure and stable in life, and we feel like we can enjoy and just live freely, right? It's like, think about how limited and restricted your body is if you don't take care of it, right? When people get sick, um, people get disease, and they just keep feeding the disease. It's like that hoarding energy. They keep feeding the disease. They get comfortable living in filth, okay? And the more you get comfortable in that filth, the further away you get from God. Because again, cleanliness is next to godliness, right? Um, And so even when we think about the archetypes of our spiritual abilities and gifts, like for example, the high priestess. Hold on a moment. I may have to come back and do a part two, you guys. when you think about the high priestess, or like in tarot, when you think about emperor, empresses, being having prophetic abilities, being a seer, um, being a builder, um, being a stabilizer, being a harmonizer, whatever your set of gifts and abilities are, right? Um, Again, this is like, it's almost like how there's a maintenance man that works on certain things. There's people who work. There's the electricians. There's the plumber. Um, all of that. So it's like your discernment, in a way, being like your surveillance system. Um, the high priestess energy is often represented as somebody that's sweeping and cleaning the space, like sweeping the dirt out of the house or out of the environment, away from something, to create clarity, for something to be seen more clearly. That's literally what it's like. And that's like, but when we see chaos erupt from people who don't keep up their homes, like let's say somebody's in a marriage and they get negligent of their home, or how discordance unfolds and chaos erupts because of the filth that's cultivating in the house. It's because it's very much so spiritual. It's very much so spiritual. So same thing, like your vehicle, your vessel, your body. You know, if you're not doing the work to clean up that filth, and this can even be like, y'all know the energy of how the elders will tell you, you got to be careful with people who don't got shit, because they'll help you lose your shit, or people who don't have their own car or have a house and stuff like that. They don't appreciate it. They don't have a certain appreciation and gratitude for it, and so they may leave their trash in your car, shit like that, or they may be more irresponsible. Like if you let them borrow your vehicle, imagine that. Think about like how we would look. I know I'm guilty. I done had two of my vehicles wrecked trying to be nice. You get what I'm saying? Um, so just imagine what does that look like when we think about our bodies. If God refers to us as vessels, like a vase, okay, a cup, a chalice, something to consume. Also, or um, also a vehicle, okay? Who's driving the vehicle, right? Who's the passengers in the vehicle? Is the maintenance being kept on the vehicle? Do you need to get your brakes done in that vehicle? Or like, you know what I'm saying? Are you just gonna risk your life and risk other people's lives? You gonna get behind that wheel drunk? You get what I'm saying? Like, come on. And even when God, talks about, I could get emotional right now. I love how poetic God is. Like, and that's the thing. Like, parable language, in a lot of ways, it's like the most, like, it's like the first poetic language, because it gives you a symbolic imagery and expression to paint an image for you to better understand and process what's being communicated to you as visionary beings, visual beings, right? And a lot of times, God speaks to our third eye by speaking to what our physical eyes have seen and what we can reference and refer to. So, again, stay focused on your mansion by sticking with God, no matter what. Um, that's why people will say that it's not good to have trash and stuff around you, especially like if you are, or if you've experienced spiritual warfare. It's not good because of what it invokes and what it invites around you, and what it may make you more sensitive to or susceptible to. So it's the same thing with our bodies, and this is even why God even talks about fasting, okay, and the power of fasting. um Hmm. Wow. The sin of gluttony. Yeah. You know that energy of like eating certain foods that are actually depleting or overeating, and then your body like what we call it the itis, right? Um, Imagine like how that's disrupting your system. That's almost like somebody putting sugar or Snicker bar in your gas tank. You know what I'm saying? When you think about like people who get constipated, people who end up experiencing problems with their colon, or having colon cancer or cancer is even forming anywhere in your body. You know what I'm saying? That cancer is being fed. And whenever there's a disease or pain, nausea, psychological imbalance or sicknesses and stuff, that's literally like if we're looking at our body like a vehicle, that's equivalent to you getting the like alert signs on your car, like tire pressure, oil change due soon, you're low on fuel, in a way, that's how our discernment, that's how our senses, like when we sense things, when we get like instincts and gut feelings and intuitive nudges and stuff like that, it's our spirit, right? Alerting us to something going on with us or our body possibly being compromised or being at threat. Meaning, if the body is at threat, your mind is threatened, your soul is in danger. Okay, your emotion, like these are indicators. Okay, to keep us on point. And so that's why it's not good to ignore signs and red flags, because that's what it's equivalent to. It's like, how long are you going to ignore that? You only got but so long to ignore that your gas is low before you run out of gas and you stuck and you stranded somewhere. And God forbid you be somewhere. You get what I'm saying? Where it's, man, any type of danger or something far more dangerous can unfold. And so that's literally what it's like when we neglect ourselves, when we neglect our feelings, when we neglect our needs, when we neglect us, needing help or needing recovery and stuff like that. And it's really sad. And that's why, these demonic spirits and stuff, like they possess people and they end up having a strong hold on them because they go through the mind, they steal your mind, and they have your mind. Like you know how the elders tell you that the mind is the devil's playground, like, or it can be if you allow it, right? And literally describing or associating it with a playground, because that's what it's treated like. Like, you know how we talk about mind games, like we're very intellectual beings, we're very, very intelligent. Our souls, like, we're very intelligent. Like, for those of us like who are like created from God, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're not out here clones, or we're not fully infiltrated, or we're not birthed from two demonic ass motherfuckers, and we get stuck there. We become that opposed to ascending out of that. Um, this is some deep ass shit. Yeah, it has a strong hold, or has the capability of having a strong hold on the person, because it's like your computer, it's your operation system. It's like think about the system of a vehicle. It's one thing to have the physical manifestation of a car. It's another thing, like, for the electricity or whatever is operating, like making a vehicle to even be able to be operable. You know what I'm saying? Like, operative. You don't want to find yourself short circuiting. Um, you want to make sure your starter, okay, is doing what it's supposed to. You want to make sure your spark plugs um, are intact. You get what I'm saying? Like, your fuel pump, right? Shit like that. That's what it's like. Um, so again, when we neglect, it's even that energy of like, let's say, boom, you got somebody, you have a passenger in your vehicle, right? If we neglect how they're treating our car, slamming our doors all crazy, spilling shit everywhere, always getting messy drunk, vomiting out on our shit. Um, and you know how sometimes like we may get weak or we go through things, and so we may need somebody to like be able to depend on or lean on. Just care for us, lift us up. Like there's a scripture that talks about being like your brother's strength, like when they're weak, accordingly, right? Accordingly. Um, but imagine putting that type of responsibility in somebody's hands who's not taking the classes, who's not teachable on how to learn how to drive and operate a vehicle and understand the indicators of the vehicle, be able to process the information that vehicle is telling you so you can move accordingly. Make sure you put the right kind of gas, okay? Make sure you know how to read the tire size, okay? You don't put the wrong tires on the car. Um, Understand that a spare tire is temporal, okay? Instead of just trying to, like being cheap and shit. You know what I'm saying? You got this shit on there longer than it's supposed to. Do you understand the responsibility of allowing someone else to drive your vehicle temporarily? Let's say because you can't drive, but your vehicle is fully intact. You still got to go or get shit done, right? Any event that they lack learning and mastering lessons and being edified and being teachable, you risk that person damaging you. So again, God give us examples of our body, of our flesh, by associating us with vehicles, vessels, and houses. That's almost like leaving somebody to house sit your home. Okay, while you go do something and they throw a party without your permission, they disregard your boundaries, they try to sabotage your shit, and it's like this is supposed to be your safe haven. And then for those of us, you got children, you got seeds that you're planting, you got creative projects, you got things that you want to cultivate and flourish. They come, trying to fuck up your foundation and shit. Now you gotta exert energy to a foundation that was already intact or that was already being built, right? These are things that we are not supposed to take lightly. And unfortunately, for most of us to learn these things, we do go through these hard cycles, dealing with people, just so we really get that, like we really get it ingrained. So yeah, that's what God was just talking to me about. What exactly does God mean about behold? I, I go to preparation. I go to prepare a place for you in my Father's house. There are many mansions. And forgive me if I'm like paraphrasing the scripture, but I got the context enough to understand what God is saying to me about our bodies. And again, going back to a point that was already made, when God says mansions and how our bodies, we're supposed to treat our bodies as a temple, meaning you're supposed to be grateful. Take care of it. Take care of it. It's almost like you're requiring a certain type of fuel, and God already let you know what kind of fuel is going to operate this vehicle to its highest capacity, right? But then you put alcohol in it. You put all that alcohol in it. You put heroin in it. You know what I'm saying? You pour lies into it. You pour self-hate into it, or other people. You allow other people to just dump on you, right? This is giving like your car operating off ethanol or whatever, like regular or 87 or some shit like that, and somebody put diesel in your shit. That's what that's like. And it's not that we don't have an opportunity to get another car in the event that our car gets wrecked, right? So those seasons of hardships, those seasons of loss and stuff like that, because of us being in a position where we could have made better decisions. We should have made better decisions, right? But the thing about when you think about God's mercy, God's grace, God's forgiveness, is like God will help you manifest or renew, right? Rebuild. Trust the potter, be the clay, right? God will give you another opportunity or give you another vehicle, give you another shot at it. And when we talk about wisdom, wisdom is supposed to be knowledge from your previous experience, right? Okay, this is what happened when I moved like this. So I need to move like this instead. Move in another direction, try another way instead to make sure I keep my vehicle intact, I keep my house intact. Okay, so I know that this particular person is very destructive. Okay, they don't have respect for me, they don't have respect for my shit. Oh well, they can't come up in my shit. Okay, that's a good example. And even like when you overcome things, right? Let's say the overcome, the conquering, the victory is you getting your vehicle fixed or even being blessed with a new one. Not everybody is happy about that. You know what I'm saying? So again, if somebody's mind has been stolen, right? Which it immediately kills their will because it's not them operating their will if their mind is taken over. All right? If it's obvious, if they're showing you red flags, if you're recognizing patterns, okay, patterns that reflect a behavior that they were in when they sabotaged your shit the first time or brought damage and discretion to your shit the first time. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why would you then re-grant that person access into your renovated home, your renovated or your brand new vehicle, or have them around your fucking bases and shit? If this person is jealous of you receiving flowers or getting flowers, you know what I'm saying? If they already shown in the past, they call them. You know how people will be up and like on these shows, the reality shows, and they be so quick to like grab glassware and fine china, vases and shit. They want to throw shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, like this my good shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you can't control yourself, so you can't be up over here. You can't be over here, and that's another thing too. This is why we also have to be mindful of whose houses we step into as well. Not even just who we let into our house, who we let into our body, who we let into our cars. We got to be mindful about who the fuck car we get into, who body we get into. You know what I'm saying? Who house we step into. Okay? And we have numerous surmountable evidence explained in so many different ways for us to be taught, right? It's almost like, you know how some of the greatest teachers like in college and school are those ones who knows how to explain things in different ways because maybe somebody's a what is it called? It starts with K. What do we call it? It's not kinetic. Is it kinetic or kinesthetic? Is it kinetic or kinesthetic? There was different ways of how they would describe learning mechanisms, like being a visual learner, being a hands-on learner, or you just being like better in a different way of learning or processing something. So I remember I had when I was in college um, my algebra or math teacher. He was a genius. He was like a genius with numbers, but the cons was his ability to break down or solve or like generate the solution to a problem in so many different ways. And sometimes, okay, if you can't really like focus your attention, it's like it can kind of confuse you because his mind just go like that, like a computer, right? And so boom, he done solved this one problem this way, boom, he just writing. We watching. Like, We students, we watching. Boom, he on the board. That's one way to stop it. Go down. It's another way to stop it. Go over here. It's another way to stop it. This is how focused, this is how attentive we're supposed to be with ourselves and with others, with our environment, where you go, anything, what somebody give you, um, what thoughts cross your mind. Sometimes, so all times, vigilance is not just about being aware of your surroundings, like, and being able to notice if the energy shifts or if you get a sense of danger, like, like, you're supposed to also have that same vigilance, like, internally as well. Um, like, for example, when you think about mechanics, like people who are experts and being able to recognize what's going on and also be able to fix and repair vehicles, they have a different type of insight than people who don't build that skill set, who wasn't taught that. You get what I'm saying? And this is why they have a job. This is why we take our cars to the shop or we take our cars to the mechanic, because they have a more more expertise, right? They studied and they're approved to be able to properly repair that vehicle, tell you what's going on with that vehicle, right? And that's how we are. Like, you think about people who are seers, right? It's kind of like that. Like, they have a more keen insight into being able to recognize imbalances and also know solutions to recreate harmony and balance to those imbalances. You know what I'm saying? Now, are there people who will get jealous of any type of profession or any type of skills? Yes, but again, going back to the spiritual, the first the first case of jealousy and envy happened with what we know spiritually, whether you believe it or not. Where I'm going to refer to God, the Most High, and Satan, Archangel Michael, because that's what works for me. Okay, so that's how I'm gonna talk. That's what I know. So Satan wanted to replace God. He wanted to be better than God. He was jealous of God. He became greedy. He became lustful. He became covetous. Like, all the sins. You know, there's a such thing as a person housing every fucking sin. Satan is all of those things. And if anything, the way it's almost like he plays this game with all people, places, and things. He plays this game of, like, I know what I am. I know what I'm capable of to an extent. Like, this is why we have temptation, right? People being able to be tempted by different sins or different things. But Satan houses all of that shit. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna see if I can tempt you with lust. I'm gonna see if I can tempt you with different categories of lust. Like, which would it be? Bloodlust, sexual lust, whatever. I'm gonna see if I can tempt you with food and gluttony, and I'm gonna see if I can tempt you with gifts and rewards and status and money and titles and people and whatever. What can I tempt you with, right? And I don't know why I just thought about Dante's Inferno, because in a way, like, it kind of makes you think about that too. Like just going through those levels of, it's almost like we all go through the levels of Dante's Inferno, and in a way, it's like, wow. Now that I think about it, when you think about generational curses, right? It's almost like, what is the bloodline more prone to latching onto the strongest? So, like, when you think about how some families, they actually did experience incest in the family. Some people experience extreme alcoholism in their upbringing, drug abuse, being a crack baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, their parent or whatever being overly lazy, irresponsible, okay, neglectful, or being a thought or a sleep around, okay, just being reckless, like with their creative energy and their sexual energy. And even when God talks about the sins of the father affect children, right? Um, that's what all of that is. That is what all of that is. Like, for example, when they try to say how certain diseases are like what's the terminology? And it never sits with my spirit well when I hear people claim that. But to paraphrase, because the word is not coming to me now, it's that energy of, oh, my grandmother had heart disease and her mother had heart disease and her mother had heart disease. I can't think of the term where they try to say, oh, you're basically more susceptible to experiencing it because they have. When no, what are the habits that they are repeating? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's stop making excuses. Let's investigate the depth. Like, let's look for the problem. Let's look for a solution. Let's take the car apart if necessary. You know what I'm saying? Like how they get underneath the car so they can better see like where things are and check and see, is this causing a problem? Is this causing a problem? Okay, well, let me look under the hood. Is the smoke coming from here? Is the leak coming from here? Like, you have to examine yourself, your mind, your emotions, your body, your soul, as well as others. You have to examine whatever environment you're in. You have to examine what you're about to consume, what you're about to eat. You have to examine what somebody is saying to you, what you're listening to. That's why God says, guard your hearing, guard your seeing. You have to examine what the fuck is being projected for you to see. You have to examine these things. This is discernment. This is being vigilant. This is awareness. This is awakening. Paying attention. Paying attention. This is like, okay, awakening. Sleep, right? This is like, okay. This is like somebody, what is a good example for that? What is a good example for that? But you know, like when you're asleep, generally your flesh is far more vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? Like to somebody trying to snake you, somebody trying to steal. Like if you sleep, right? Your eyes closed, you're not fully conscious to what's going on, and let's say you overshare. This is why we also have to honor what God told us about righteous discretion. Like, don't let nobody know your fucking money stash is. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got them in your house and you actually let down your defenses and go to sleep. Have you thoroughly examined that person? Does that person even, like, do they boast or even talk about taking some shit or taking some type of shortcuts to getting some wealth and shit? Like, what type? Have you examined that person's mentality? You know what I'm saying? Have you searched? Have you tested their spirit? Again, the mission, and maybe I shouldn't have even put mission impossible. It's supposed to be a mission impossible when it comes to God's anointed. But no, the mission it's a possible mission clearly. Like we see it all around us, right? To steal your mind, kill your will, and destroy the body. Again, you know how certain drugs fuck up your teeth, fuck up your organs, fuck up your body, right? Your skin is an organ. It's the largest organ of your body, right? So when people operate, so again, the most potent youth serum is the Spirit of God, is Christ consciousness, is that aligned vibration or vibrating in benevolence. Never mind light and dark, but vibrating with benevolence, whether that's benevolent light or benevolent dark, because we're made of both. We're made of day and night, right? We're made of black and white. So we have to be able to properly examine the gray areas. Okay, when things start to get cloudy, okay, where illusions are being broadcasted towards us, we have to examine the shit, right? That's not something to take lightly. So this is why people who achieve that and who achieve that understanding of divine masculines and feminines, this is why we generally look younger than what we actually are. And people who are just, you know, carriers of evil. Okay, they're infections, moving about, roaming, seeking whom they can devour. That's why even like infections and disease manifest like, or they can manifest as like spreading, airborne, spreading via touch. Okay, because that's literally what it is, like spiritually. This is why you have to be mindful, like about what spaces you be a part of, right? When that energy of boom, you didn't examine or you made excuses, you overlooked, that your homie is just a straight up like Bob is a straight up hoodlum. Don't give a fuck about it. Just selfish in the worst way. As in, they'll be like, hey yo, can you get me a ride to the store? You take them to the store because of your good nature, right? Your loyalty. They don't tell you that they planning to rob the store. Okay. Boom, they rob the store, jump in the car with you. Hey, drive out. That's what it's like. If we don't properly examine, that's what it's like. Like how you're guilty by association, or if somebody is sick or they got COVID and you in there, you next to them and around them and shit, you end up getting sick. That's what it's like spiritually. That's what it's like. So when people talk about when people describe STDs as in like spiritual transmitted diseases, that's how that happens. Because evil is an infection. It's an infection to the mind, body, and soul. Okay? And what does an infection do? If you don't purify yourself, if you don't detox, if you don't put the things in your body that's going to boost your immunity, what ends up happening? Right? You get worse. Sometimes it can even progress to death. That's literally what this is. There are people who start off as, little townhome, little tiny house, little apartment, luxury apartment. Some people even start off as nice houses. You know that energy of how sometimes people who are rich financially and even like people who are younger, how because they lack wisdom, they lack knowledge to even be able to access wisdom, right? They don't properly handle those resources, and sometimes they can even just further destroy or further harm themselves. This is why sometimes people who are wealthy or rich will commit suicide. Okay, will become predators, will become bullies, because again, Satan is the embodiment of every sin that God has described. So when you think about like a mental illness, right? Borderline personality disorder, multi-personality disorder, bipolar, shit like that. What if that's literally just like that legion of demons, right? Schizophrenic. And there's no what if, because I know better. First of all, I know better. I'm just talking in a way so that different people can be receptive to this message. This is why it's very important who you create ties with. Because when you think about conceiving a child with somebody, and everybody is a building, a house, a vehicle, everybody. If you don't master the upkeep of your vehicle, or even if you do, and you conceive a child with somebody who hasn't, or who lack knowledge of the proper resources to repair the vehicle when necessary, and y'all create a vehicle, those two people, think about what you're creating. You know what I'm saying? Um, you know how some children are born with disorders. Some children are born with being kind of inclined to certain kinds of mental illnesses and stuff like that. That has everything to do with the spiritual DNA of the father or the mother. That's what that is. That's why sometimes when you think about alcohol fetal syndrome, how does that happen? The mother consumes like alcohol while she was with child, and you see the breakdown that that does to that child. And it's not even just like the learning disabilities alone and the lack of growth with certain body parts and organs and stuff like that, but you know how, and I know this because I have a degree in psychology. People who are born with alcohol fetal syndrome, they oftentimes become alcoholics. Okay, because it's in their system, but not even just that. It's in their spiritual system, right? It affects the makeup of who they are to an extent. Um, but in all things can be repaired with the cure, which is God, which is Christ consciousness, literally. And that's why anytime like we even as humans we speak ignorantly, and we say that there's a such thing as incurable diseases. I personally don't believe that. I believe that to an extent of, if you don't align your will with God's will, yes, a disease can be incurable according to the judgment of God. That's like the story of the man who was a leper. You know what I'm saying? And how God, and now I'm even hearing there's this song. I love this song. In the song, it's about the scripture, the lady with the issue of blood, and how she was shunned. You know what I'm saying? Because of her illness, just like the leper. But and she was like, if I could just touch the hem of his garment, then I know I'll be made whole. If I can just press my way through this madness, then his love could heal my soul with only one touch, right? And it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the duration of the hardship, right? What matters is that before your time is up, bro, align your will, reclaim your mind, pray, pray to God, align your will with God's will, and you can recover from anything if you do that. But you have to press your way through the madness, because there will be madness, because there's a fight over your soul, there's a fight over your mind. You know what I'm saying? There's a fight for your body by evil spirits who have lost their opportunity to have a body. You know what I'm saying? That's jealous of you because you still have yours, and you still have an opportunity to reap the utmost with God, right? So there's going to always be a lust for your mind, your body, your soul, your heart, your ears, your eyes, everything, always. It's not, oh, you reach a certain level of consciousness and ascension, and now spiritual warfare just goes away. No, it don't necessarily work like that. But when you become an expert in something, that's where God is getting us to align with the fact that God has given us an indestructible spirit because our spirits come from God. Okay? The Alpha, the Omega, infinite. God is infinite. Okay? This is why when we die or we lose these bodies, our spirits don't necessarily die. Right? It's really deep. It's really deep. And I feel like this is why we deal with a lot of illusions around actually understanding what God has been communicating to us all along. You know? Hmm. And it's like having boundaries. This is like a boundary. If we think about our body as like a house, a boundary could be locking your doors or having locks on the doors. Okay? Making sure there is nothing faulty in the electrical system. Having a safe if you got a bunch of money that you need to protect. Um, Having a fence or a gate built around your house so not just anybody can tread on your land. You know what I'm saying? Or trespass. Um, Same thing with your vehicle. Keeping your doors locked, right? Being mindful of where you park your car, what areas you're in. Okay, like that's that's what we're supposed to always be aware, conscious about. Move. But yeah, that's what I was getting on. And let me finish this and then I'm gonna close out. This is why we have to be mindful again of the illusions of these things in the physical because a lot of people they lose the plot. They lose the plot and they think that when God says, behold, I prepare a place for you in my father's house where there are many mansions where I am, there you may be also. A lot of people only contribute that to material gain, like actually materially gaining a mansion. You know what I'm saying? And they miss the plot that, hey, God is talking about you, your body. Because if your body is at a deficit, this shit that you want to experience, because that's what it is, you're experiencing it while you have your body, while you're here, while you have life here in this lifetime. If you want to fully enjoy that shit, you have to make sure this house, this vehicle is intact. You have to make sure that's what's inside the vessel is not poisonous. It's not some type of toxins. That's what that is. If you want to enjoy the actually reap the benefits, you get what I'm saying? Um, this is why we have to be open to being edified. We have to be receptive to the rod of correction. Like, bro. Hmm. And literally, that's how powerful God is, though. This is why God tells us about what it actually means to have the faith the size of a tiny mustard seed. Just like that lady with the issue of blood. One touch from God. That's why there were so many examples of very minute things that Jesus did to heal people and completely shift people's lives and their situations for the better. Right? The person that died, the person who was blind, the lady who was supposedly diseased with an incurable illness, just like the leopard. Things that if you're operating at a lower consciousness and a lower awareness or your sleep, you don't know that you have access to that. You wouldn't know that you have access to that. And then you're more susceptible to fear mongering, to housing the spirit of fear, which God doesn't give us that spirit. And I had to sit and listen to God just now. Because when we think about courage and boldness of spirit, Does God get that? Yes. But again, if you're not careful, there can be some things that you have directly from God that Satan can infiltrate and blend. It's like, you know how people add alcohol to juice? That's what that's like. Like, boom. The juice is your boldness spirit. You're courageous. You're brave. To, you have that spirit within you. But let's say he tempts you with or he throws some trauma in there. He pours some trauma in there. He pours some insults in there. He pour some type of threat and pour shit in there basically. You know what I'm saying? To throw you off from otherwise being sober minded, right? And trick you out of acting out of a spirit that God gave you, but it's polluted. So when we think about those toxic expressions of love, right? That's why it's equivalent to that. It's equivalent to somebody adding some gin or adding alcohol to juice. That juice, like let's say this is fresh squeezed juice, and how it's all around us. Literally, the examples is all around us. When you think about how fruit has its natural sweetness and all of that, but we'll go and add some other shit in there to make it even sweeter. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's what it is. That's the ultimate. Like that's one. I'm gonna say one of the ultimate lessons that we really need to ground. And I'm telling you, like, if you finally get it that I am indestructible through Christ. I'm indestructible through keeping my will, my soul corded to God, no matter what. And even when I face things um, that's going to try, some people will like cut your cords and stuff like to your car, or like do little weird shit like that and try to sabotage shit. That's kind of how it is, like thieves, like how Satan is described as a thief, trying to cut cords and shit to fuck up your car, right? Fuck up your system, or ultimately, eventually get to that main cord, that main tie, which is your original soul tie, which is you being tied to God. This is why God tells us, I knew you before you entered your mother's womb. This is why sometimes your own mother, your own father, your own child, any of them at any time can be used against you to possibly tempt you or get close enough to push you to sever that cord or that tie with God. Completely rid you of your faith in God. Yeah. So I'm gonna leave it here, y'all. I'm gonna leave it here. But there's more. We're gonna like definitely go even deeper with this because I don't even feel like I'm done. Like I don't feel like I'm done, but I am gonna like end it here. Yes, it's the reception here. Is the reception where I am. I'm assuming that's what it is because even when I'm connected to the Wi-Fi, it happens as well. So it's not really something I control. I have plenty of signal. I have all my bars. So, but you have to understand like the things that instruments of God, people who allow themselves to just be like, just let God speak through them. Of course, there's going to be attempts to disrupt that, to distract you from the message. So even though that little sound is there, you can still hear what I'm articulating. You know what I'm saying? Um, And I'm gonna say this, like, even earlier today, I had did 2 videos, and I forgot that my Bluetooth was on and my earphones were connected, and my earphones was like on the other, like across from me, so the volume was very low. But it's like the delivery of the message was just so profound. Like, it's like it reminded me of how clear I generally am when I speak, because that's the thing. Our throat chakra gets attacked. Our crown, like we're like the lady said in the song. If I can press my way through the madness, that's what it's like to live for God, to speak about God, to bring clarity or bring sound counsel. There's going to be energies trying to interrupt and disrupt that. You know what I'm saying? So, if anything, I would say let's transmute that by not allowing that to distract us from the message anyway. You know what I'm saying? And it will be better soon. But I just hope you guys can hear me loud and clear, because this was really deep, and I got a feeling that this message, like, it's not over. But I definitely said, like, what I did share, what God shared, um, it's a true gem. It's a gem. But all right, you guys, I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the hearts, and thank you for being you. Seriously, thank you for fighting to be you and pressing through the madness to be your authentic self, like according to what God predestined, what God created, not what Satan tried to infiltrate and remold for his agenda. You know what I'm saying? So